Welcome to Brain Supreme Podcast, episode number 2. My man, William. Yeah. How you doing, dude?
It's so good to be here.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah, I'm on Brain Supreme today. So it's, I do 3 days on, 4 days off, and it has been, I can tell the difference.
You do 3 days on, 4 days off. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the whole thing with the product. Like you gotta, the coaching protocol is demystify, familiarize, and personalize.
Yep.
So like if people are scared, they limp in,
That's right.
capsule, one capsule.
That's right.
And then the familiarization, we offer a couple different protocols. So we've got, I think I started you on the standard 5 days on, 2 days off. But once you kind of familiarize, then you just personalized.
And I'm the kind of guy that I normally just go all in with everything I do that gets me excited. But with psilocybin and with microdosing, I wanted to just take it on my days that I play pickleball and train.
Yeah.
And I notice a huge difference. And I play about 4 days a week. So I started with 3. I think I'm going to move to 4 next week, 4 days a week.
Oh, with pickleball.
With
Brain Supreme. And then take your 3 days off.
Because I've been on it for like 3 weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell a huge difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, man.
That's good. All right. Well, your folks know who you are. Tell our folks about yourself.
Wow. Yeah. So, I don't even know where to begin.
Let's start with the AWKN Ranch.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back to origin story a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we'll go deeper into AWKN Ranch.
Sounds good. So, I really think it all goes back to a little bit of my story to tie AWKN Ranch in. And that is, I was in rehab at 17 years old, grew up in South Florida, came from a loving, good family, but parents got divorced at a 14, 15 age. And man, I just fell off the tracks hard in high school, was always an athlete. And then so through my drug addiction in my teenage years for 3 solid years, I reached that point of...
What age did it start?
14.
14.
Yeah. Wow. And I went to rehab at 17.
17.
Yeah. Dropped out of school, fell hard, really hard, and just got into all kind of trouble and even started, selling drugs, doing drugs just every day. So when I came out of rehab, my best friend committed suicide the day I got out.
Wow.
And then he was 17.
Wow.
Yeah. So then on top of that, a girl that I was,
was he put on like an early stage Ritalin antidepressant back?
We all were, yeah.
You all were,
all of us, all of us were. Anyone that wasn't focusing in school was put on that.
Give us a year.
This was 1997.
Okay.
Yeah, 1997. I'm 44 now. So, then my girlfriend that I had dated and we were all hanging out with overdosed a week later. So I'm lucky in a way because those 2 deaths, very close to me, propelled me not to go back to use. And I went back and graduated. I went to college, but I was done with drugs at 17, where a lot of people were starting to use drugs more in high school or in college and later. I was done.
So was it an epiphany and like spontaneous, or was it
a
petering out?
It was more so, holy shit, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go that dark. Right. So it wasn't, I wasn't healed yet, but I just knew I wasn't going to go back to drugs. So in my 20s, in college, I was doing Tony Robbins, landmark education.
Oh, no.
I got into all types of different types of personal development. I became a personal development junkie in my 20s. I just wanted to learn, grow. And I attribute that but I didn't start to heal until my 30s. That's the interesting thing.
One of the things I try to do in the podcast is to finish the main thread, but embrace the tangent, but come back to the main thread. Yeah. So the main thread is your personal story. I do want to sidebar 1 second.
Yeah.
Because I'm very interested in because Brain Supreme, we've had a lot of success with addiction, and with psilocybin, it's non-addictive, it's anti-addictive. But I have this theory, as I've been in this space for 10 years now, and so I wanted to ask you, okay, childhood issues. When the father is not present physically, mentally, emotionally,
correct,
but the mother is fully there, the child goes wayward, but the mother's love, early stages in life, is enough that the child can redirect and get back on course.
You're giving me goose.
Let me finish the thought. Yeah. When the mother isn't present, that's when the addictive behavior becomes mortal, basically, like kids die from it. So
I think
where do you fall?
I think everyone listening right now needs to really listen up, because I don't think I've heard this anywhere in my 44 years of devotion to healing and expansion of consciousness. What you're touching on gives me chills. My father, he loved me, but he was checked out. He was depressed. He was ashamed. He lost his business early. He went to Vietnam. He lost it. He just was checked out. But my mother, her love, it saved my life.
Yeah.
That love kept me going to believing. I know. So a short sidebar. I started recovery centers, and I built 14 properties, 100 employees, and I owned rehab centers. Yeah. And eventually I realized those weren't working either. That's another story. But I will tell you, from what I learned, it was exactly that. Someone's mother's love who was cut off, or they didn't have a mother, or their mother died, or maybe their mother just didn't have that loving nurturing. Yeah. That was mortal. That was. But
you can redirect. If the father's love isn't there or isn't quite right, but the mother's love is there, like, you can redirect.
Yes.
If the mother's love isn't there, I just find, like,
look at this is like, just look at Tupac Shakur. Tupac's father was not present, no father, but his mother's love. He had the song Dear Mama. Yeah. His mother's love was always there. So he was able to, as destructive as he was able to be successful in creativity and love and find something. So it was my mother's love. Mom, if you're watching and hearing, hello, I love you. Thank you so much. Her love is what got me through my life.
Okay, good. All right, so that kind of answers my side.
Pretty cool.
Okay, so let's go back to, so we're basically doing the origin story of how you came to awaken. So,
well, that goes into the rehab centers, which was tying the whole story in, because once I was going through all my 20s of personal development, it wasn't until my father passed when I was 29, and I went bankrupt. I lost everything I had. And a 4-year relationship ended that we were engaged. So all that happened in 2009. You know, the market crashed in 2008.
Oh,
you got the story.
I've got my own story about that.
So I was in real estate. I was investing in real estate at the time. Anyhow, in that moment, I found God consciousness. Now, Christ consciousness, God consciousness, love, everything. I remember still on December 21st, 2009, I'm grieving my father's passing. And I just remember and feeling an experience of God that I cannot explain. People who are listening, who've had it, they understand it. But everything became God. Everything. The plants, the trees, my dad, myself, the book in my hand. It was everything became, and I hit my knees. I wept, and I wept for hours. And I felt like I was born again. I felt like I was raised from the dead. The Christ consciousness raising from the dead. And in that moment, I moved to Austin, Texas. My dad's birthday was 5/12, and I got a call in that moment. Check it out. In that moment of that day, I got a call from a 512 area code, and I had no job. I was homeless. And not like homeless. I could have gone back to my mom's, but she had cats. I'm allergic to cats, but I really had nowhere to go. And it was a job offer in Austin, Texas. And it was the only possible, to me, it was a sign. Wow. And I packed up my car and I drove to Austin, Texas.
Wow. That's quite something. Just hold on. So by the way, having had a Shaktipat experience myself with an Indian guru, what you experienced is like completely sounds like Shaktipat, like spontaneous dissolution of the ego, and absorption into the whole universe and the kind of oneness of things.
And I had to go through a death in the 3D. Think about my relationship, my dad dying, and bankruptcy with nothing. All my material, I had to hit the death, rock bottom, the blessings of the bottom. I hit rock bottom and was reborn. Yeah. And my life became about healing then. That's when it was not about so much Tony Robbins, Landmark, all the, life design and in MITT, like it was all about healing.
Yeah. At that point. So just going back to your experience at 17 years old, was that a similar kind of epiphany, or just the deaths of your friend just redirected you?
It was a similar one, but it wasn't. See, I believe if you follow Kabbalah or the Torah, like there's actually real energy or real wisdom in the stars. I don't believe, some people may have a spiritual awakening that young and find God consciousness. For me, that wasn't my plan. When I had that rock bottom, it was like, holy shit, I want to be alive. I don't want to die. I don't want to go down and be a druggie. It was a real epiphany to change my life.
Right.
Now, it wasn't a God consciousness spiritual experience. It was more of a breakthrough epiphany experience.
Right.
Yeah. Enough to change my life.
Okay. So now you're 29, you moved to Austin. And then, is that when you start creating the rehab centers?
No, I actually, it's the weirdest thing. I became a pastor at a church.
Really?
For 3 years. And then I was studying Kabbalah and going to, I grew up Episcopalian.
Oh.
I started going to Shabbat on Friday nights and Saturday at the Kabbalah Center. And then I was going to church on Sundays.
Wow.
I just was learning all this wisdom about religion.
Kabbalah, for those, that's a Jewish mysticism. That's the wing of Judaism that deals with mystical teachings.
That's
and
right.
The tree of life and so forth.
That's right. Yeah. And for me, I'll never forget it. My teacher at the Kabbalah Center, Batia Solomon, she's probably one of the most wisest women I ever met.
Really?
And she just would teach me about the ego and teach me about everything that was going on in my life just resonated so hard. I couldn't wait for my meetings with her every week. And then I was, going and doing mikvah and I was just like doing all these things I didn't know, but I saw the way the Jewish fathers were spending time with their sons and kissing them on the cheeks and dancing and Shabbat dinner. And I just was like, I didn't have that. Oh. It was really powerful for me. But then on Sundays, I'm worshiping and Jesus Christ and crying and feeling the love of the unconditional love and reading the Bible. So I'm reading the Old Testament, the New Testament, and I'm reading Jewish mysticism at the same time. It was really an incredible time in my life. I was celibate for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 3 years. All I did was read and heal and read and go to church.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about the origins of Jesus and, Christ consciousness, I mean, that's it, traditional Judaism, mystical Judaism, and then this evolved Christianity.
I felt it's a unique story. And the church eventually kicked me out of ministry because they didn't understand it. Mm. So I got the boot from the Christian church, but so grateful for Gateway and John Burke and Ted and all the people there because there's something really, I got what it is? I got the gold from there. And then I got the gold from the Kabbalah teachings. And then I got the gold from understanding the Old Testament. And I just felt like I was getting infused with all these codes at the same time.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Well, it all paid off. Okay. So then, transition us now to.
So then after I got booted from being a pastor, so I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And, I went to this place. I learned about the word codependency at 33 years old. So I'm 33 and I'm like, I pick up this book on codependency by Pia Medley, Codependent No More, and then Melanie Beatty, Facing Codependency. And it changed my life. I'm like, whoa, okay. I felt like I got the codes of codependency. I want to work on this. So it was like sex and love addiction and wholeness and boundaries and self-love and healing shame and parts work with Richard Schwartz. Parts work was a big. So for about 3 years, I dove into those types of programs and those types of books. And I went to a place called The Bridge in Kentucky. It's been around 40, 50 years. Yeah. And it's an incredible place. I went there for 4 weeks. And it's not a drug addiction place. It's a place to heal codependency. Mm-hmm. And I worked on all these parts works and I came into this self-love and boundaries and I was learning this new language. And then I was just like, you know what? I got my first friend in Austin. She said, I have a house. You should offer a codependency center. And so I opened up my first one for addiction and codependency.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was called Bridgeway. So the Bridge and Gateway, my church, Bridgeway. Yeah. Combined them and the crazy thing is that it turned into 12 properties in about 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have the business acumen to keep up with that? Or did you get like a good CFO? I mean,
it's really interesting you said that. Well, there's a story there. So it really blew up, probably one of the fastest growing, healthcare companies that kind of took off.
Yeah.
And being an Aries double Gemini, kind of like that's just how things seem to go in my life when I really fully immerse myself in something.
When it hits,
takes
it hits,
off.
yeah.
And so that actually backdoored into opening 4 different drug and alcohol treatment centers. So that was inpatient, outpatient, detox, aftercare. We had the full curriculum, and we opened one up in Hawaii, and we opened up some here in Texas. And I ended up partnering with Dr. Nicholas Kardaris. He has a best-selling book called Glow Kids. He's a professor at Stony Brook in New York, and he's been on, Dr. Phil so many times and Good Morning America. He's really the leading teacher and influencer on screen addiction for kids.
Oh, wow.
He is absolutely incredible. So he and I partnered up. He came on as my COO, but also my lead. He was a doctor, so he's a lead clinical. So he took over the company and did great things with it. And now Omega and Maui Recovery and all these wonderful places are doing great today.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So now walk us in. So how did that transition from the traditional recovery into the ketamine center?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. In 2019, I had this Jerry Maguire moment, and it was really hard because our treatment centers were great financially.
Yeah.
And they were helping people, but I noticed I had this Jerry Maguire moment. I woke up in the middle of the night sweats, and seeing how everybody was relapsing. 95% relapse rate in the current drug and alcohol addiction industry. 95%. And it's this model that it's not working.
Yeah.
And so, and here I am making money off of it.
Yeah.
And so I start the Jerry Maguire, hey, I got to start write this thing and share it. Like, hey, we're doing something wrong. The only people really winning in the drug and alcohol industry are the owners of these centers and the doctors that are prescribing Suboxone and all these things.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I lived it. I seen it. We had 14 properties. People were just relapsing and going, it's a revolving door, going from one center to the next, one center to the next. People would get sober for 3 to 6 months. Then these companies, these drug and alcohol centers would give them jobs because all their friends are addicts, and then they would recruit all their people. Then they're making money on the urine testing. It just became like gut-wrenching for me. So I didn't know what to do. I was stuck in a rock and a hard place. I started to get my partner, Nick, was like, Dr. K was like, hey, you got to stop sharing because...
Have you ever heard that line from Steinbeck?
No.
It's amazing how difficult it is to get a man to understand something when his livelihood is based upon him not understanding.
Right. And you remember Jesus like flipping up the money tables? Yeah. So it was like, quiet down. Like we're not going to get referrals. So then I was in a real dilemma. I went to Peru. I sat with ayahuasca and it changed everything for me. I came back, I sat with ketamine therapy. And my life then I sat with psilocybin therapy, and then my entire awakening happened. I felt like I just went through a spiritual, a mental, emotional, and physical awakening. Like I started learning about chakra system. I started learning about Kundalini. So then I started sharing that on my platforms, and that's when I became public enemy number one to the recovery industry.
Right. But what I'm noticing is there's this repetition of patterns.
Yes.
So if I probably go back, so like first you have your addict friends and you're using and you're like, I can't do this anymore. So those people are like, you can't be in our club anymore.
Right.
And then you've got, 10 years later, 12 years later, you're a preacher and you start to preach from an integrated standpoint. And then you're like, oh, you can't be part of this group anymore.
Nope.
And now you're in rehab and you're like, oh, this isn't really working.
Out of that group.
Right.
All right. And so.
But I think you finally found your home.
Yeah. And it was a really hard time because you have to understand, I chose to sell my business, but I sold it for 50 cents on the dollar. Yeah. I sold out, and I went into a place where I was really alone for about a year. Even though I was so alone, the plant medicine therapy was bringing me home to myself, all the fragmented parts, understanding that we're living in an internal place of now.
Yeah. There's
no past, there's no future. And I came home to myself. And that's when I met my wife. That's when the vision came for Within Center and AWKN. And that's when I about a year and a half later, I opened up the Within Center, which is now AWKN Ranch and Within Center.
All right. Sidebar, 1 second. I just want to ask you something, and then we'll go into Within and AWKN. One of the things that I found about psychedelic plant medicine, not cannabis. It's like for me, cannabis stimulates a part of the brain that works with forgetfulness.
Yeah.
So I know you probably do. You might be one of them. I know so many people who from 16 to 26 wake and bake, stoned all the time.
That's what I did for 4 years.
Yeah, and then suddenly a switch gets flipped and they don't do it anymore because there's so much pain that they have to forget the pain. So cannabis is like from a if you can control it recreationally, and then some people just need to do it. It's so much better than hoof and pain or alcohol. Some people just they don't have the words. They have to stimulate that forgetfulness part of their brain so they can sleep at night, so they can relax, so they're not just destroying themselves with their own inner dialogue. That's cannabis's role in a way. And then that spontaneously stops. One of the benefits and the kind of magic of plant medicines, and tell me what your thoughts on this are, is that once you have a mystical experience, you can no longer abide personal hypocrisy and living out of integrity. You might live out of integrity, but it's so apparent to you that within short periods of time, you're like, I'm out of integrity. Like I can't live like this anymore. So I'm assuming you're making 6, maybe 7 figures a year. You're running these centers.
That's right.
But you're aware that you're living out of integrity.
Couldn't do it anymore.
It's eating away with it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you go watch the movie Jerry Maguire. It's just what happened, And then he felt, I love that movie. It's Cameron Crowe's such a great director. He also created We Bought a Zoo, very similar, just such a good movie. But yeah, at that point, I sold the centers, and I knew that was time for me to just really walk a new path, go into the forest all alone, and figure out my next way. And what came into fruition was opening up a new paradigm of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really lonely and scary in the beginning because people didn't understand it, but it was, so my whole life was meant for this. And it's psychedelic immersive therapy where our clients come in and they can stay for 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks or longer. And every week they're going to have 2 really profound macro psychedelic therapy sessions. Very really well held, set and setting. We're more ceremonial, so we have a reverence to the indigenous and the way we hold. A lot of our guides at our center have been out to Peru or the Amazon, and they've sat with different types of tribes, and they have profound experiences. There's 2 things that plant medicine does. It heals the nervous system. It heals trauma, and it awakens consciousness, expands consciousness. So if you look what ketamine does from a scientific standpoint, it softens the neuroplasticity in the brain. Then the receptors, the receptor cells that have the neural nets, they start to loosen up these old patterns, and it starts to fire off these new possible pathways, these new neural pathways of what life can look like, right? That's the scientific side of things.
Yeah.
But what it's really happening is they're starting to see how these patterns, it's like people say that it's 20, 30 years of therapy in one session because it can put that default mode network to sleep just enough to go into the nervous system and go into the subconscious, and that the nervous system and the subconscious can heal itself, right? And so it's a direct way in, and studies show if you do 4 to 6 sessions, your life is completely transformed. And that's what we see. We see it every month. People are taking before and after photos because their life is transformed, a new version of themselves. Whereas in rehab, they might not be, drugged out when they leave and they're like talking, making some eye contact, but give it a month to 6 months, they're back in another rehab center.
Yeah, because it's the outside trying to get in as opposed to the inside emerging out.
Going within.
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay, I want to, next 2 things I want to do. I want, just kind of the clear definition of within and awaken, so our new listeners know like where it is, what you're setting up, what you're going to be doing. And then I want to go into like specifically, because I'm new to ketamine. Like I've been so immersed in first cannabis and then psilocybin. Like I don't know anything. Like what's like, I want to go into what really is ketamine, how you guys administer it, and what's your little proprietary combination. So first, like, tell us about Within and Awaken, and where is it? What are you going for? What's the
Within was opened up 3 years ago downtown. We have served over 1,000 patients. We have an average of 5-star reviews, 70 plus whatever 5-star reviews in 3 years. People have documented their stories, their transformations, and our protocol is, so we have an outpatient and an inpatient. So what people fly from all over the country to come to our inpatient. Then you have people in Austin that will come and do outpatient. Okay. You know the difference, right? And so, our protocol is intramuscular injection. Some clinics do the IV drips. And what I've found about the IV drips of ketamine, in doing it myself and having others, is that you're hooked up to a monitor, there's beeping, you hear, you can't move because you've got a needle in your arm, and people have harder experiences, feels like you're in a hospital. It just doesn't have the more spiritual aspects. So the reason we chose intramuscular is because we can really curate and create the setting. Like at our ranch, we have 2 healing yurts, really big yurts, where they're decorated. Yeah. I mean, like Bali and Morocco, and people have profound, they can move, they can experience, they have the freedom once the ketamine has been injected. And they typically, what I've noticed, is just have more deeper spiritual experiences. And then so our program is coupled with a lot of integration. I would say it's 80% integration, 20% in, psychedelic therapy. So on our ranch, we have a 13-acre ranch we just moved to 3 months ago. You've seen it.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
And we're really happy about it. It's been years in the making. So we're in Oak Hill, South Austin, 13 acres. We have saunas and cold plunges and hot plunges and pools and a temple space and a sweat lodge. And a sweat lodge is being built. We have a wellness center, yoga studio, retreat center, yurts, hammock gardens, fire pits. I mean, it's a beautiful property.
And a pickleball court.
That's the icing on top. Yeah, for the audiences, some of you, people who know me, I play a lot of pickleball.
Pickleball advocate.
Yeah.
The place is sensational.
Thank you.
Like, it's absolutely sensational.
Thank you.
And its proximity to downtown.
14 minutes to downtown. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So now,
let me talk about the integration piece. The integration piece is key because, we do blood work, functional medicine, peptides, supplements. We do IV hydration therapy. We have coaching. So our clients get weekly coaching. They get weekly talk therapy to process their deep immersive experiences. We have a live-in chef that uses all organic foods, and we tie the meals to certain blood work and inflammation and allergies. So it really is, I would say, a medical wellness transformative medicine center.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, now explain to me ketamine, a little bit the history of ketamine, what's it derived from, and then you went into a little bit of like the brain science of it, but how long's ketamine been around, and what's the story with that?
Well, the ketamine's been around for a long time. I mean, they used to use ketamine in the military. They still do, right? To numb pain. Like my mother actually recently had a fall, unfortunately, went to the hospital, and they gave her ketamine on the way to the hospital. And she called me. She's like, David, I thought I was in a movie. I really did. I didn't know where I was. I felt like people were filming. And I'm like, yeah, you went on a little bit of a journey. So ketamine has been used that way for pain and anesthesia, as you know. If you use it in the right dose, I mean, it's been used as a horse tranquilizer, people have said, right? It's powerful. But if you use it in the right dosage, it can be, and that's why it's labeled now as a psychedelic, because if you use it in the right dosage, in the right setting, with the right intention, it can really pull you into a perfect place of going into your subconscious, where the subconscious can heal itself, right? Your body can be put back together. It can process feelings of grief you don't know how to process. it really is a real life hack of like 20 years of therapy in one session, right? So people have cathartic experiences. People will grieve if they need to grieve. People will need to laugh if they're serious and they haven't learned to laugh. They'll belly laugh it out. Like the body knows what it needs, right? The body keeps score. Yeah. So when you turn off the default mode network in the brain, which is what ketamine can do, you may have heard of the default mode network, right? Yes. It's been studied now for 20 years. Okay, so the default mode network in the brain, you can chat GPT this and Google it. It's like if you like think of your subconscious and nervous system as the jail cell, and the default mode network is the guard out front, guarding your nervous system, guarding your subconscious. It's been hurt as a kid. We've been wounded. We've been hurt. I mean, birth is a trauma.
In landmark language, it's your story.
Beyond that, okay. I think it's the story that attached the real pain as a kid. Yeah. Like when you came out of your womb, that's a trauma. Yeah. Like,
or your racket, right? That's what they call it.
Yeah, they call it racket. I mean, but here's the thing though, and this is where it's when people say, "Oh, trauma is just a story." Yes, and I always like to say yes, and because it's a multi-universe. It's yes and everything. But it's if I'm a kid and my dad wasn't there, and I got bullied and I got beat up or I got abused and my first girlfriend left me for like my friend at 10 years old. Like these things hurt. Yeah. And they hurt the body. And so much then my story, right, is I'm a piece of shit. I'm a liar. Yeah. I'm not good. I'm bad. I'm ugly. I'm not enough. People don't like, so then we attach the story to the pain. So then by the time we're 23 is when the brain stops developing. By the time we're 23, you can't hurt me. I'm tough. Yeah. I'm going to make as much money as possible. I'm going to hurt you before you're at me. I'm not going to let anyone in. I'm going to pull you in. I'm going to keep you right here. I mean, like we've learned our identity at that point. So the default mode network in the brain is the thing that's keeping everything on guard. It's guarding our subconscious and our nervous system where the healing of the trauma is. Right. That's why people go to therapy for 30 years and never have breakthroughs.
And it's mostly unconscious. Like
it's all unconscious.
We're not really aware of our default mode network.
Because the default mode network wants to forget all of that, right? And just guard. So that's why you'll see people in their 30s, 40s, 50s going through relationships over and over and over, failed business over and over, or similar patterns, drug addiction, food addiction, sex addiction, porn addiction. It's just because it's not dealt with. Yeah. Now, what the beautiful thing that we do at the Within Center and AWKN Ranch is in the right set and setting with ketamine, it turns off the default mode network in the brain, which is the guard to your nervous system. It's the guard to the jailer, the guard to your subconscious. So then the beauty of ketamine can help you go into the nervous system and you're asleep. Your guard's asleep. So then it can process everything. It can process the pain, it can process the trauma. It goes you back into those years where it was too scary to do with anyone else or therapy or even in seminars or things like that. That's why people keep going to seminars over and over. And it can grieve it. It can release it. It can forgive the person, understand it. The brain knows how to comprehend it and say, hey, you were 7 and your dad wasn't there. And oh my God, let's forgive your dad and let's forgive the bully. And like you're processing all this and you come out, trauma's gone.
Wow.
It's powerful.
How long is a ketamine trip like that?
First of all, I never use the word trip. Sorry. Now, it's okay. It's okay. The reason why is as a drug addict, I use the word shrooms and I used to do all the trips, drugs. I don't use the word drug, trip, shroom. And it's not that it's bad. It's just, it's a connotation of, what I used to be like, right? For me now, it's like, these are substances, sacraments, medicine, it's reverent, it's sacred, everything's sacred. So a ketamine experience, one dose will last about 45 minutes to an hour. So that's about how long the session is.
Okay. And that's your protocols?
That's our protocol. Okay. Yeah. Great. We do have other protocols that we can speak of, there's other medicines and, but they're just not, MDMA is almost legalized, right? But we do have other protocols for anyone listening. We have lots of people we can recommend and people we work with.
Okay. Well, let's do that now. So, I'm going to Within tomorrow, so I'm really very excited about this. It's perfect timing in my life as well.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah. How would you draw a distinction or clarify the difference between a therapeutic psilocybin dose and a therapeutic ketamine dose? Like for people who've done one or the other, how do you delineate?
Yeah, I've sat with all the medicines several times in different ceremonies with different settings. The only medicine I haven't sat with is iboga, which is an African plant and very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually known as one of the most powerful plant medicine experience. So the difference between like a MDMA therapeutic session, a psilocybin therapeutic session, a ketamine therapeutic session, a DMT, ayahuasca, peyote, wachuma, there are all these different types of medicine journeys. Yeah. And they all can provide really profound experiences, and they're all different. Like, for example, like wachuma or peyote is really deeply rooted in like ancestral and ancestors and nature and the animal kingdom. And like, it's a whole nother, or as ayahuasca can go into the deepest parts of the soul and have you understand Mother Gaia, earth wisdom beyond comprehension. And it's typically pretty deep. It can be pretty dark. It can have you feel what's going on in the collective and like the masculine and the feminine and the DNA and our history. It can have you understand deep, profound wisdom of our entire existence. Psilocybin, since it has consumed and digested pretty much everything, right? Psilocybin is going to be really powerful downloads. It can be crunchy. If you just do a big psilocybin dose, people have experienced and say that it's usually pretty crunchy at some times, but then it'll take you out through the other side. And it will give you really earthy, strong, powerful insights.
What's your definition of crunchy? What do you mean by crunchy?
Crunchy. So in a ceremony, in a journey, if it gets crunchy, which everyone who's knows what, if they've sat in ceremonies, they know what that means. It can just be difficult. For example, if I'm in a psilocybin or any ceremony and I'm experiencing like pain, it's like, no, I don't want to accept that. Right. My dad did that, or my brother or my uncle, or like, I know it's too pain, right? That's a crunchy experience, but it needs to go there because it needs to go to that deep, deep place to heal that uncle or brother or sister or girlfriend and understand. And then what I always found is, as crunchy as a plant medicine journey might be, it will always bring you back to love, because love, I'll say it again, love is the ultimate frequency of the universe. It's everything is love. Even now the darkness is love.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Well, I got to kind of little bit reset from that.
Yeah.
How often do you journey these days as like the owner of the facility?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in the beginning, I think I was actually just speaking with a friend yesterday who came out to the ranch. In the beginning, when you find plant medicine, just like anything, people like jump in. They're like, what? This is like, they're going through multi-universe, interdimensional, past and future lives, like chakras are opening, kundalini, like everything's opening up. So people tend to journey a lot in the beginning. But then as you realize that you are the medicine, you're the medicine, I'm the medicine. I'm actually the creator of my own hologram experience. Holy shit, I'm the creator of my own hologram experience, which means now I'm choosing everything. If I'm being a victim, or if I'm being angry, if I'm, oh my God, why did this person do this to me? I'm actually choosing to experience being a victim or being a bully or being bullied. Like, I'm choosing it, right? So then you don't really, for me, I will only sit in ceremony when I feel called. So these days, maybe like once every couple months, I'll sit and have it. And they're more like, it's more intentional because I have it's like going to the hospital to remove a tumor. When I sit, it's because there's something really intentional I want to understand, something really intentional I want to change, something intentional that I want to have a breakthrough in. And then so I'll bring that to the ceremony. Whereas before, in the beginning, 5 years ago, it was like, oh, you're going on a journey? Yeah, count me in. Yeah. Count me in. I'm ready, you know? But now it's just more laser intentional.
Yeah. So, okay. We've got, with psilocybin, it's pretty easy to wrap your head around microdosing. Like you're using it as a supplement in what I refer to as your sweet spot, perceptible, non-intoxicating, non-hallucinatory, but you feel some level of increased efficacy. Like it helps you focus in your pickleball game.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like right now so when I'm doing the podcast, I literally won't microdose all week because I just want to try to get so tapped in.
Dialed in.
So, and I feel that.
So do I right now.
Like I did 3 Genius today, which is a 300 milligram microdose, which is, microdosing is pretty much between 1 to 400.
It is.
I've been doing it for a long time, so I go a little higher, but I feel what I call that etheric, the kind of etheric, mycelial network, like from my heart to my head, like connects with yours. And you just know it's just information's giving and flowing. It's wonderful feeling. Sometimes when I go to boxing class, like I notice a boxing class, like, I'm terrible at it, but my ability to focus on the rhythm, the ball that bounces back and forth, like when I do a microdose performance dose day, like 15% better, like noticeably. It's really interesting. Wow. Here's the question I want to ask you. For me, alcohol it's just shit. Like I never had addictive issues to alcohol. Even when I was a college linebacker, 3 or 4 beers and I would be literally not feel good for 2 days. So I just was never much of a drinker.
Yeah.
I'm not a good drinker. I don't really have addictive traits in that respect from drugs and alcohol standpoint. Never struggle with that. I have no problem. So we've got psilocybin microdosing, psilocybin heroic journeying.
Yeah.
Like both kind of valuable, important work. But now we're starting to experience psilocybin from a recreational standpoint. Personally, if it's done occasionally, I have no issue with it. Alcohol, people like to party, people like to have fun. Alcohol is so corrosive that, hitting what we call a recreational dose, once a month, twice a month, like fine, go have some fun, be loving. So that's me personally, and that's kind of like where I stand on it. And the thing about psilocybin is that if you try to eat a gram or 1.5 grams, 3 nights in a row, it's not gonna by night number 4, it's not working at all.
Right.
So you can't do it. What's your feeling on recreational ketamine use? Like it is starting to kind of come into the.
Well, let me explain. I want to jump to that question.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, 30 years ago, it was cool to go to McDonald's.
Right.
30 years ago, it was really cool to go to Wendy's and get a Frosty and fries and Burger King and get a Whopper. It's not cool anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's just not cool. I won't touch that place. It used to be cool to drink. It used to be cool to have a spirit. Now it is a spirit. That's what people don't realize. It's a spirit. And it used to be cool to drink. It's just not cool anymore because we now know it's poison.
Alcohol sales are
straight up poison.
Alcohol sales are plummeting.
I know it is because we're getting smarter. We're getting more conscious. You have to understand, as a species, our consciousness, we're going into a 4D, 5D frequency. And that's a whole other conversation of where the planets are aligning and where we're moving as a collective. But you're noticing that. And see, psilocybin, if you read a book called The Immortality Key, plant medicine's been around since the dawn of time. I mean, Jesus was using plant medicine to do baptisms. I mean, it was used in Egypt thousands of years before, using Syrian root. They were using plant medicine.
The Elysian rites with Greeks.
They were awakening the pineal gland, and they were expanding consciousness, and they were experiencing dimensional travel. And so it still goes on to this day, I think, in elite circles. But I will tell you that, like anything, look what they did to tobacco. Tobacco is a beautiful medicine. It is a wonderful medicine.
Brings you fresh.
Every shaman I've worked with says the strongest medicine, most grounded medicine, grandfather medicine. And then we turn that, not they, there is no they, it's us, it's just collective. We turn that into profiteering, and we turned it into poison with chemicals and all of this. And then what do we do? And then addiction. Then what do we do with chocolate? The cacao plant is one of the most healing plants known to man, cacao. What do? We turn that into milk chocolate and milk duds, and we killed all Kit Kats and created diabetes, created lung cancer. What do we do with the coca plants? The coca plants are medicine for energy. Medicine I've been hiking in Peru, and they give you the cocoa plants. We turn that into what? Cocaine and addiction. What I want to say is we'll turn anything into an addiction because that's the neurosis of, God is experiencing itself multidimensionally. So that means God is experiencing the light of the light, the dark of the dark, and everything in between. God is experiencing itself. There's a neurosis to God. That's what most people don't realize. There's a neurosis, and that's okay. Because everything has a right to exist. So we're going to turn things into an addiction to then learn not to do it. Yeah. So for me, I've never put ketamine in my nose. I've never done a spray. I've never done a powder. I've never done, now, thank God, the reason I've never done those things, and I've never done psilocybin just to take, I'm going to just take some psilocybin today. The reason I don't is because I have the background in my drug addiction. I have a respect for that addicted part of me. Mm-hmm. People who say they don't have it, I know you said that just in drugs, everyone has an addictive part to them, because if you're God experiencing itself, there's a neurosis that we all have. So I just have a respect. And so I will only do a ketamine therapy session or an activation session in a sacred way with a guide injected. And the people that are using ketamine, it's a slippery slope. So just be careful, because you could use slippery slope with chocolate, slippery slope with sex, slippery slope with tobaccos. Slippery slope with everything.
Everything, yeah.
So that's how I look at it.
Some slopes are more slippery.
Heck yeah.
Is recreational ketamine, is it like a cocaine slippery slope, or is it like,
in owning all the treatment centers and the thousands of people that have come through, I think there was one person that had a ketamine addiction. Mm-hmm. And they were snorting powder, and it was like that, yes, anything can become an addiction. I think anything can become an addiction,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. What's your vision with AWKN Ranch? Where do you want multiple of these centers? Where do you want to take
with my wife pregnant right now with our third, we love Austin. We love the community. We love the people. We love the lakes. We love it's easy to fly out East Coast, West Coast. We don't love the weather in the summers, so we decided to travel during the summers. But AWKN Ranch is a home for the community. It's for the collective. There's about 25 of us that brought it to life through the Within Center. Within Center is really gets the credit because we had a wonderful backer investor named Omani Carson. Omani is, him and his wife Jeannie have been together 41 years, and they have been helping the planet awaken consciousness. They're such angels for so many people like myself and others, that they're helping so many people come home to themselves and find love, find healing, find consciousness. And they became our partner, and we opened AWKN Ranch in South Austin, and now we get to be a community. We're going to releasing 50 founding memberships on March 13th. So March 13th is our grand opening. We've been building for 3 months.
This will release well before that.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, because March 13th, we're going to give everyone a free IV drip and our yurts. Come on out. There's going to be classes on the hour, every hour. I think you're going to lead a class.
I'm going to do, like a microdosing breath. I'll give it some free samples of Brain Supreme for those who want it. And then I'm going to do what we're creating a Brain Supreme, kind of morning movement breath work scenario. So, I taught yoga for years, blah, blah. So I'm going to kind of go back into that bag of tricks, and, I'll teach our first, kind of introductory movement breathwork combination.
Yeah, there's going to be pickleball. The hot and cold plunges will be available in the saunas, and we're going to have classes on the hour every hour. We have Get Soul, Raw Republic juice, lots of different awesome drinks and beverages will be given out.
Cool.
We're going to do a couple of classes on like what is ketamine therapy and what is like psychedelic medicine therapy. And it's just going to be a great time, a great weather. I think it's going to be a Thursday and during South by Southwest. So come on out if you want to have a good time.
No, we'll have it linked in the show notes as well too, and it is going to be a great time.
So that being said, we're releasing our first 50 founding memberships, and then we're going to cap it at 200 members total. But it's co-working space, it's pickleball, it's contrast therapy, hammock garden, and just full utilization of our facility. And that's what we're creating here. Just a place for community and connection.
Yeah, I can't wait. So, and I'm so glad we met, and feel so fortunate to be involved in this kind of formative time period with it too. It's just going to be great. Yeah. What's been your experience? So from a business owner, kind of experienced leader, therapeutically, how does microdosing psilocybin work with the protocols that you're doing? Does it help from the integration standpoint after the ketamine experiences? Like, what's been your personal experience, and how do you think you can use I'm not just being self-serving with Brain Supreme, or maybe a little,
but you have to understand what here's what I want to say. Microdosing psilocybin is medicine. It's helping the brain rewire itself. When you understand what psilocybin really is, it's all about taking all the earth energy. Like some people say we evolved from mushrooms because it consumes everything on the planet, everything, digests it, and then rebirths. And it's connected in the mycelium network. So it's all connected underground. Right. So if everything were to freeze over tomorrow, everything dead, there's only one thing that would live. Psilocybin.
Those mycelial networks.
Mushrooms is the only thing that would live. How many times in the world or universe has this earth maybe completely died?
Yeah.
And then what rebirths things? So that's a profound statement when you really dig in. So you're actually taking Mother Earth into your system when you microdose.
So this is because I don't lead. I'll instruct people on how to do therapeutic dosing on psilocybin. I don't personally lead those. I don't have the training and qualifications. I also have this thing where I have this whole thing is bent versus broken. So if you've had some rough patches in your life, you're in your 40s, your 30s, 40s, 50s, you've had some rough patches, but like fundamentally you're making it, you're successful, you can hold down a job, you have a family, the trauma in your past experience is manageable to a degree. Like you can coach yourself through a psilocybin journey. If you've got some real breaks, you've experienced real hardcore trauma, violence, whatever it may be, you definitely want to be in the therapeutic setting.
100%.
For sure.
100%.
And you have to be very honest with yourself about that. I'm sure the same is true with ketamine.
Well, here's the thing. Even someone like myself who's been through the depths of the depths, lows of the lows, and has a pretty successful life in general, I only sit in ceremony with a guide.
Yeah.
It might be my wife. It might be, but it's going to be in a guided way because energetically, I want someone to hold my energy field that's pure and trust with intention. And then after the session, there's prayer and completion, and there's a real container of energy around it. That's why I advise people who get in the space, don't go out and, I'm going to go to the woods and take 5 grams. Okay, it doesn't mean something bad. It doesn't mean things bad's going to happen. It could be really profound transformation experiences, but it could also be really scary that it doesn't have to be. Yeah. If you do, go out with someone and have them walk somewhere else and go out and just make sure that they're there with you at least. Yeah. So that's just my own belief. Again, that's because I have a background in addiction that I really respect, and I really, I
agree with that. What I was kind of driving at, so it sounds like the ketamine, and I know with the psilocybin that the lights get turned on in the room. And so you understand now the pattern of the furniture, metaphorically, so to speak. And when the journey ends, the lights go dim again, but the pattern of the darkness is never the same. And the microdosing just keeps walking you towards that light.
It does.
Because you've had, and you don't need to microdose necessarily in conjunction with a macro experience or vice versa. They're both independently very powerful, but when used in conjunction, sounds like the ketamine experience, I know with the psychedelic journeying, that when those lights get flipped on and then they get turned back off, that little bit of microdosing, twice a week, 5 times a week, it just continues walking you towards the light.
Well, again, we're putting Earth, Gaia, Pachamama medicine in your system, right? So of course it does. And it doesn't, so for me, microdosing psilocybin is not going to give you these profound insights. Like a macrodose.
No, yes, 100%.
But a microdose is going to just have you be a little bit more alert, a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more in tune with your body, because it's connecting parts of you. Whereas if I wasn't on my I just might be a little bit more or less, let me think, energy, like it's something's not, you can tell when you microdose because you're dialed in with yourself. And so of course I actually have seen microdose help. There are some people who won't do who want to do a big journey, but I actually have them microdose for a couple months first.
Yeah.
So it's not like a one size fits all. Some people have the big macro first and then microdose. Some people do microdose, then a big dose, and then continue microdose. So I think it's helpful either way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm super excited for you, man.
Thanks, man. I'm excited for you too.
Yeah. No, well, we're kind of on this journey.
We are.
We're on it together.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, literally.
Wow.
So, are you sitting? Are you going to join us, or are you just
I'm going to hold space? I'm going to hold space.
All right, cool.
I'm honored to.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait. I'll come back and kind of.
We'd have to do a round 2 down the road
and kind of recap.
I know you have a big list of people.
Did we hit our notes? How did we do on our list there?
I think we hit them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got it all.
The future of psychedelics. That's about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a really interesting thing. We were talking about that when a little bit before we started the recording. And, I have, my feeling is that decriminalization I love that idea. The whole legalization, that part scares me, because if you think for a second that once the government and the pharmaceutical industry get a hold of these ancient plant medicines and these teachers who, look, man, for the most part, like midwives and psychedelic therapists are like the best people I've ever met. And you're going to know in a second if they're like a phony and not a real one. But like the real psychedelic therapists that I've met, like they're incredible people.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't, they've been studying with their shamans and their teachers, and they have their traditions and so forth. So I'm very much concerned about legalization, because once it gets in the hands of the government and then it goes to the pharmaceutical industry, if you think for a second that like the people who have fucked everything up in the world are suddenly going to do right by this one plant medicine, I'd say past is usually prologue. And I just rather have the market and the ancient teachers, kind of guide the experience, the process.
Well, I have a little bit of a different take.
Yeah, because you've come from the clinical side. Yes. Yeah, so
well, my take is, first of all, there is no they or the people. Like, it's really just us, because if God is experiencing itself multidimensionally, it's experiencing everything from the left to the right and from the darkness to the light. And so my experience is of course consciousness it's going to fuck it up. There's the neurosis I talked about. So you're going to have, it's part of it. So we can break through. God is always collapsing on itself. And so there's this like early adopters, the research is there. It's going to become legalized. There are people, politicians and people in government come see us. And, and we work with them all the time. And so there are people that, I can't tell their names, but there are people that are sitting with these medicines. Yeah. There are people like the Rothschilds and the Walbars and like all these people that are sitting and healing their generational lines of the hate, murder, crime, cover-ups, all the things, right? So like, why do they not get to heal too? We all get to heal. Yeah. All these people have been like, they've been filled with greed. I've been filled with greed. They've been filled with lust. I've been filled with lust. They've murdered people. I've murdered in my mind, hated people, gossiped. So it's like, so he who doesn't sin casts the first stone, right? So my point is that, Yes, it will get legalized. Yes, we'll continue to raise consciousness. Yes, people would then try to profiteer off of it and make money because that's going to be in the level of consciousness they're at. And then we're going to go off and fuck it up and then learn what not to do. I just think that that's just part of life.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's profound. But unlike so many other medicines, these plant medicines have a way of, so for instance, like the whole MK Ultra and the CIA, all that stuff.
They've been
like
using that for a long time.
They had more success like with LSD and things like that. Mm-hmm. They didn't have much success with mushrooms. So it's like
maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
Well, from my research and from what I've learned, like it didn't, like the whole
LSD was their main form.
The whole mind control.
I mean, you heard what they did in the town where they were dosing people LSD and people like, there was a whole experiment. It was in Europe.
Yes.
And people were dying and they put LSD in all the water.
Yes. Yeah, I was just reading about that. But I'd like to believe, I'm optimistic that along with the legalization of these plant medicines comes the corollary raising of our consciousness.
Yes.
So that people then become more inclined to do the right thing.
Yes.
With these right medicines.
Right. Yeah. And then more people will become 20 and 25 and 30 and they'll just... the people, it's a cycle because then you're going to have people who are still up and coming doing the wrong things.
Yeah. Yeah. But hopefully it's less, it's a game of percentages.
I don't know. So this is my own opinion, is like the yin and the yang, darkness and light, everything's polarity. So there are people who believe, oh yes, one day it's just going to be everyone singing Kumbaya, holding hands. It's just going to be pure love and everything. I don't know. Maybe consciousness in this third dimension is actually meant to have the duality and the polarity in order to exist. I would not have been this spiritual if my mother and my father and my brother and sister, beautiful hearts, beautiful people, but they don't want to expand consciousness. Mm-hmm. They're, it's rodeo and Trump and like just programmed and go to church and like, thank God, even though I tried to like help them for so many years, what if they didn't need help? What if they're perfectly happy in their life?
Right.
My sister married a cop, 4 kids, like they so that I could be the one that was in the polarity of the opposite to expand and awaken. So I just have this belief that there's a yin and the yang, and polarity and duality must exist in this 3D dimension to have the experience of life.
Yeah.
It's my own opinion.
Yeah. So I had a mystical experience with an Indian Swami in 1999. And the time period following that, the concepts of non-duality were very natural for me, like my meditations and my processing. But then once I had children, and then especially after COVID, boy, has duality crept back in.
Yeah.
And because when you see that there's forces and factors and entities and organizations that are really trying to like constrict the life of your progeny, of your children. I do not have this. I understand duality now. I understand non-duality, mm-hmm. But this is maybe why I'm excited to journey again tomorrow, because boy, have I been caught up in duality recently. And
it's good. Does it bother you?
It bothers me that I develop a little bit of the confirmation bias and the negative addiction, and who's wrong and who's on the.
Does it frustrate you sometimes?
100%.
Okay, so you ready for this?
Yeah.
Whatever you resist persists in your life.
Yes.
So you're actually creating.
I'm very aware.
So
of
here's the deal: you're creating more of it.
Yeah. 100%.
It's the quantum physics, the observer. If I lock in and I'm frustrated, bothered by it, I'm literally creating more of it in my life.
Yeah. What you resist persists, and
versus,
then it gets stronger.
It's duality, it's polarity. Yes, there are people trying to suck the life out of us and hypnotize us and lie to us, put shit in our water, our air. But there's also organizations that are trying to love us and heal us and awaken us and make us free. There has to be both in this dimension. Everything has a right to exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a new concept. And now I'm not holding on to anything. And guess what? Holy shit, everything in my life is blossoming.
Yeah. 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 Well, I mean, coming out of the the COVID years and the trauma and everything. Yeah, that's the energy I'm really looking
Let's do
forward.
it. Tomorrow we're going to call that in for you.
Tap back into.
Tap in.
Cool. All right. Well,
Awesome.
Hey man, thank you so much.
So good.
It was great.
What an honor.
We'll link to everything in the show notes.
Thank you.
What's the best way to kind of get in touch? We just.
Oh yeah. So within.center if you want to come and have a protocol session, and then AWKNRanch.com. Within Center is on Awaken Ranch, and then Awaken Ranch is its own community. So
Great.
Awesome.
All right, man.
Amazing.
God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Awesome.